Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Permanent Values, Part 10b. No Riba, which we call usury and interest, that is, there is no riba under the system of Deen, and it is a permanent value. And we will do some further elaboration today. These are the references, and in this particularly the Quranic system of sustenance by Allama Pervez is a very good writing on this subject. And this is our contact in case there is any doubt or any clarification about this presentation or any of our previous presentations. You can get in touch through this contact. The first slide is some aspects related to the study of the Quran. Now, I have, just to reiterate, I have put down some comments just to set the scene for the rest of our discussion. From the beginning to the end, the Quran provides guidance on various aspects of human behavior and conduct, which we manifest as a result of our choices and decision making. So it is important that we look at our choices and their effects, the short term as well as the long term. It makes it clear that what is in the Quran can be comprehended by using our cognitive potentials manifested through the use of intellect and reasoning. In this regard, Quran states, لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. We have gone through this verse a number of times before as well. Surely we have revealed for you a book in which is a message about your eminence for you. Will you not then use your intellect? And the word zikr is used over here, which means our own eminence. It is about us. And what is noted in it about Allah is also related to human self-development. And if we used the intellect given to us, then the things start to become very clear. After the initial Islamic period, when the system of Deen was established, Muslims allowed the teaching of the Quran, despite being preserved and protected, that is, in Arabic text it is protected and preserved, to become contaminated just as the people of the book had done. Because human beings wish to follow their own desires, and they don't like limitations placed on those desires. And that is where the benefit of the Quran lies. Quran says that despite the fact that you want to follow your desires, in order to get those results which are noted within the Quran, you should bring your desires within its confines, within its limits. And then you will see that how the horizon, the expanse of your intellect expands. So this is the point we should keep in mind, that when we follow our desires without the Quran, then we got different results. And when we follow within the Quranic precepts, then we get higher results, better results. As a consequence, they started to lag behind other nations in the world, and the concept of Deen became replaced with religious, sectarian belief systems in which the emphasis is on individual salvation, not Deen as a system. And that is important to understand, that within the system of Deen, self-development takes place. Without the system of Deen, the individual efforts should be directed towards Deen. So that is the status in which we are under the man-made system, that our efforts should be directed not towards individual salvation or sawab, but towards establishing the system of Deen, so that mankind can be relieved from all those chains and exploitation in which they find themselves under human system. Unless we go back to the Quran with a view to coming to grips with the system of Deen and acquire that psyche based on the acceptance of Iman, precisely as noted in the Book of Allah, we simply cannot acquire understanding of the system of Deen. And that is a very important point for us to grasp, that without the Quran, we simply cannot acquire that self for which the procedure and process is given within the Quran. Without understanding Deen as a system, we cannot understand the role that riba plays in man-made systems. Because riba is because of human attraction and greed for wealth. And Quran is asking us to get rid of that greed, that proclivity towards wealth. That is why it starts right from beginning, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, in verse, for example, 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah, that despite having love and affection at a fundamental level for wealth, you have to start sharing it with others, because that concentration of wealth in few hands is the one which is creating problems for you in the world through man-made systems. In fact, we cannot fully understand man-made systems and its deceptive nature. Understanding riba holds the key to comprehending Iblisi systems in the world. Because unless we understand the economic side of the Iblisi system, we simply cannot understand the system of Deen, because Quran wants us to first look at the economic side of human existence, then grow out of it. No to riba, meaning of sohat. Now, this is one term which we did not cover earlier, and because of the paucity of time, so I thought I'll cover it over here. And it is also in relation to riba. This is the root, pulling something out from its root, separating something after slowly peeling it. Those are the meanings. Everything which is haram, whose mention is derogatory. Haram and dirty profession, which is shameful. Every disliked and haram earning, because it severs the root of blessings and eminence. And that is very important, and we'll look at some verses as well. About the Jews, the Quran states, وَتَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَأَكْلِهِمُ السُّحْتَ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Many of them do you see racing each other in itham and transgression. And itham means something which slows us down. For example, when we fall sick, we are in a state of itham. And Quran says that what affects yourself. For example, when people go into depression, they become very slow. Their activity diminishes. And their consuming of things forbidden. And that is important over here, is consuming. And Quran says that do not consume the possessions of others. Do not have a system which exploits others. Evil indeed are the things that they do. And over here we can see Yamaloon Amal is noted over here, which means they do it deliberately, and puts the onus on those who have influence in society. And that is important for us. Laula yunahahum humur rabbaniyuna wal abaru an qawlihimul itma wa aqlihumus sohta labesa ma kanu yasnaun. And see, the beauty of the Quran over here is amal, and over here is yasnaun. That is, they invent it, they concoct it, they coin it, they deliberately manufacture it. Why do not the rabbis and the scholars forbid them from their saying of itham and consuming things forbidden? Evil indeed are their works. And over here we should keep in mind that these are the things they do it deliberately. We can see under the man-made system, everything these powerful nations do is deliberately, and those who follow them also, they do it deliberately. Next point is, wherever there is a capitalistic and religious mentality, there is prevalence of human exploitation, economic as well as psychological. In this way, people are enslaved by visible and invisible chains. Psychological is very important to understand as students of the Quran, because when we accept something that it is something which is a fait accompli, this is in my fate to follow it, then we give up. Quran says, no, don't give up. It is all on your choice and intent. If your intent is clear and it is within the confines and within the understanding of the Quran, then Allah's help is available to you as per His law. So Quran is there to help us to raise the level of understanding of our own psyche. It is placing it within our reach. In this way, people are enslaved by visible and invisible chains. Islam has arrived to release mankind from these chains. And obviously, if we do not understand what those chains are, we cannot identify them in the first place. So our platform is to identify these chains and then do something about it. And Quran says, وَيَسْنَعُ أَنْهُمْ إِسْرَهُمْ وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. He releases them, and it is addressing the messenger, and now it is addressing us. So obviously we cannot remove these chains. We cannot help others to remove these chains. First we have to identify these yokes and chains and then remove ourselves and then help others. He releases them from their heavy burdens and from the yokes that are upon them. Next is no to riba, empowering the weak and poor is the aim of the Quran, and it includes both economic plus psychological. After making it crystal clear, and we have gone through this verse number of times previously, وَأَنْ لَيْسَ الْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى, that man can have nothing but what he strives for. And this is a very powerful statement of fact. For becoming insan, works is essential. See how Quran has linked human beings to its efforts. So what Quran is saying is that you should make an effort to prove that you are a human being. Then the purpose of sending wahi is to aid in the establishment of that system in which Quran says, Inna saata atiyatun akado ukhfiha litujza kullu nafsin bima tasa. I've taken this verse 20th surah in which there is a account of Messenger Musa and how he was directed to go to Surah Taha, in which he is directed to go to Pharaoh. And at the beginning, this is what Allah says, verily the time is coming, my design is to keep it hidden for every self to receive the return by the measure of its effort. Without a system, it is not possible. And over here, if we see what Quran is saying is that we know, that is Allah knows that what kind of desires are arising in our heart and mind. For example, being students of the Quran, we are not happy with the man-made system. So that means he is aware of our desire to have that system which is called Deen. So Quran over here says then start working on this so that you go and establish that system in which everyone gets according to the efforts they make. And that is very important. If we see the same root is used here, ma sa'a bima tas'a. So cosmic forces, cosmic design is that when human beings start working on within these permanent values of the Quran, then they do get help. Of course, it's a slow procedure. It also depends that how bad the situation is. But ultimately, if the formula is right, the results will be there. The cosmos is designed and arranged in such a way that وَخَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ وَلِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Very powerful statement of fact, and this is about the law of requital or law of mukafat. Allah created the heavens and the earth as al-haq, and we know al-haq means those efforts which bring out the positive results. And when positive means not for few, but for whole of mankind. That means Deen is a system which is al-haq and it is bound to bring out good for everyone, so that every self is recompensed for what it has earned. And this is a beautiful statement of fact and very encouraging, because for us, that whatever efforts we are making psychologically as well as physically, these are bound to bring those results out which are noted in the Quran collectively. And no one is treated unjustly, and that is the bottom line, because it is inbuilt. Whatever I am doing or we are doing together, it is bound to bring the results for everyone. And the law is that if the guidance of Wahi is followed, then وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ أَسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And we wish to be gracious to those who were weakened on the land, to make them leaders and make them heirs. This is a beautiful verse I thought to share over here, because if we look at the verses before that, then we will see that what Allah is saying is that when people start looking for solution to their exploitation in the light of the guidance of the Wahi, then it becomes incumbent on Allah's law that it must help them. So if we are following the path correctly and we are following the procedure given in the Quran, then this help will become available to us at some future time. And the procedure for this is man kana yuridul izzata falillahil izzatu jamiyan ilayhi yasadu kalimul tayyibu wal amalu salihu yarfa'uhu. If any do seek power, and that is the beauty over here, that if we want power, that is power from Allah and falillahi. And Quran says, to Allah belongs all power. So that means all what is happening in the world relates to Allah's laws. If we want power from Pharaoh of the world, then we should go to the Pharaoh. And if we want from power from Allah, then we should follow his book. To him mount up words of purity, and kalma over here means that ideology, that those laws which are put forward by the Quran for us. And tayyib over here means which produces correct fruit, which produces that fruit which is good for us. And khabis means which produces evil results. So tayyib over here is very important, that purified results which we desire. So if we want a word which is put forward, the concept of which is put forward in the Quran, then we must follow it. It is he who exalts each saleh deed, and that is a beautiful part of this verse for us as an instruction, that if saleh deeds, which means if we bring out our best in the light of the Quran, then we are bound to get those results which are noted in the Quran. Next slide is greed leads to an adverse impact on the human psyche. I put down this slide, though there is a far more to this side of human psyche, but over here at least it will give us some food for thought. A proclivity for the accumulation of wealth leads to an adverse psyche. And Quran says, Allazi jama malan wa addadahu, who piles up wealth and keeps counting it. This becomes the aim of such mentalities. And we see plenty of these around in the world. And particularly, for example, in the case of those countries which become very powerful, they don't want to share, rather they keep exploiting others. What is the impact on such people's selves? And because they don't have any guidance within them, and there is no external guidance they are seeking, and they see the impact of this accumulation of wealth and power in few hands, which causes so much poverty and misery in the world, but they ignore it because they think that the life will end with death and there is no accountability. The first verse sums it up of this surah, Wailul lil kulle humazatin la mazate. And we have gone through this surah before. The mentality of such a person becomes such that if some reformer appears among the people who opposes the capitalist system, this person will criticize this because they don't like it, because it goes against their desires, leading to accusations and slanders, and will try to create dissensions among them, those who oppose this evil system. Because when people have power in their hand, they also control media, they also control religious side of it, and they also control the capitalist side of it. As Quran says, Pharaoh, Haman, and Karun are three essential parts of man-made systems. It is not that these people do not see the impact of the path of theirs. It is the lack of a sense of accountability and empathy which contributes to this. And then religious beliefs provide a false emotive satisfaction justification, because the sense of guilt does arise in their minds. And that is why they do some charitable work as well. But at the end of the day, they overcome those proclivities because they get that false emotive satisfaction by giving help here and there and create beggars in the world. And we should always remember that each beggar is a human being like us, like each one of us. And Quran says, Innal lazina la yu'minuna bil akhirati zayyana lahum amaluhum fahum yamahun. As to those who have no iman in the hereafter, and that is the crux of it, because people think they are animals and they live at animalistic level of existence, and animals don't have hereafter. So they think that there is no hereafter for them. And this is a very important point towards the Quran draws our attention, that at a fundamental level, there is no guidance inbuilt in any human being. They have very strong desires, and which is unlike animals. Animals do not have choice and intent. Here, human beings have choice and intent, and they gain tremendous power through this money and by exploiting others, and then they cause so much imbalance and fasad in the land of Allah. We have made their deeds pleasing in their eyes, and that is another very negative aspect of this, that these human beings, since they don't hold themselves accountable, they think there is no hereafter, their own desires become pleasing in their own eyes. And a lot of people have seen it who use religion as a support. They think that this is the wealth they have accumulated is coming from Allah. And that is the worst thing they can do, because this is what Iblis did. He said that it is Allah who has misguided him. Because all the wealth which accumulates in few hands is because of the Iblisi system, and one must never ever relate it to Allah. And so they wander about in distraction. Then Quran says, "Wahum fil akhirate humul aksarun," and in the hereafter theirs will be the greatest loss. Why Quran is telling us? Because students of the Quran are the ones who are picking up these interpretations, these meanings, because these students are the ones who are moved by the plight of yatim and miskin in the world. Their heart aches when they look at Gaza and what is happening in the world, innocent human beings being killed and children being blown into pieces. Then they come to the Quran to get help from Allah, and for that they wish to become those mu'mineen who can come together, unite their hearts, and then get help as per Allah's laws. Next slide is the human psyche needed for understanding it. Before coming to terms with the issue of riba, we need to come to terms with the kind of psyche which Allah wishes us to acquire to manage human affairs, and which the whole structure of Deen is raised on this premise that human beings need to get their priorities right willingly using the Quran. So we have to set our priorities right as students of the Quran. Part of this commitment is to enter into a covenant with Allah. Very important, because we have a self and we are following Allah's complete eternal self. And for that, we have to enter into a covenant with another self. Just like we enter into covenants with our families, with others, while doing our job, when we are doing a business. So Quran says, "Inna Allah hashtara minal mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna Allahumul jannata." Allah has purchased of the mu'mineen of their selves and possessions in exchange for Jannat. It might appear a bit harsh over here that we are handing over life to Him. And the Quran says you are going to die in any case. Do you want a life beyond your physical death or not? And what are you scared of? If you understand Allah's laws and start following this path, that surety will be created within you by following this path, which will tell you where are you heading and what kind of a value will you put on that kind of certainty and surety from Allah. As students of the Quran, it might look a bit hard to follow, but it is not. Once we come together and our hearts are united, then the journey becomes easier with the passage of time. Then once Jamaat is formed, and this is a beautiful verse which we need to remember by heart. قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَاتُكُمْ وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا أَحَبَّ عَلَيْكُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الْفَاسِقِينَ. And imagine that Allah had to reveal this verse to the messenger of Allah at a stage when the Jamaat had already been formed and the system of Deen was in place, and some of the Mu'mineen were finding it hard to part with their possessions. And that is why Quran first reminded them about this covenant and then said, of course this is verse 24 and then it is 111, but it is in Surah At-Tawbah. It's worth going through the verses before and after these verses. Say, if it be that your fathers, your sons, that is your progeny, for which you have love, biological love, your brothers, your mates, your kindred, the wealth that you have gained because of the man-made system, because of the capitalist system. And this stage hasn't come yet where they were asked to give away their wealth that is beyond their needs. The commerce in which you fear a decline, are the dwellings in which you delight, and the houses which you make, and then you write down Hazam min Fazl Rabbi, are dearer, take a higher priority to you than Allah and His Messenger, which is the Islamic system and the striving in His cause. And if we look at all these items which are mentioned over here, the Quran has excluded nothing. Everything is there which we see in the material world. Then wait until Allah brings about His Amr, and Allah guides not the Fasiqeen. And Fasiqeen means if we do not acquire that self which we are meant to acquire, And if we have made all these efforts, but we have missed some part of it, as a result, we do not acquire that self which Allah wants us to acquire, then we are essentially in a state of fasq. These two aspects define a clearly defined phase of the struggle on this path. It follows after acquiring unity of hearts, as noted in verse 103. Let us go to the next slide, the kind of human psyche needed. This cognitive dissociation from the love of wealth and possessions is not comprehended overnight. I put down this comment through my own personal experience as well, that following this path, of course, it's not easy, but if we continuously remain within those permanent values and keep thinking while we are earning a living within man-made system, and Allah knows about it, and if we know that all messengers lived their life initially within the man-made system, then gradually we come to terms with it. And of course, once we come together and share all this, then our self becomes gradually stronger and stronger. And we also take lead from each other as an example. It is a paradigm shift in our outlook, which we come to grips with by gradual process of self-development. And this is important. The building is never constructed in one day. First, we lay down the foundations where we acquire Iman. Then gradually, brick by brick, attending one meeting after another, by parting with some part of our wealth gradually, and seeing the change which brings within us by parting with a part of our wealth. And that is important, that there is always a change within ourselves after we have deliberately, following this path, strengthened ourselves. It does not mean that the value of the material side of the life becomes diminished. Rather, its importance becomes far higher than the man-made system can ever understand it. The Quran is asking us to change our focus away from the success defined through material gains to the success gained through catering for physical needs as well as the needs of the self. Because Quran says that you have a physical body as well as cognitive abilities. And the rational side of our thinking and reasoning is the one which is brought under the control or under the direction of the guidance of the Quran. And once we have done that, then we will understand what is the significance of our body in relation to the development of ourself. So that means as the self will grow towards becoming tayyib with every passing day, the need for body will gradually reduce and it will age as well. I hope we can relate the two. Physical needs to live this physical life based on prosperity for everyone, and the needs of the self so that this life is lived in freedom from fear and huzn and based instead on the contentment of hearts through mutual affection with fellow human beings. And that is important to understand, that the pleasure which we get by following the Quran and understanding the problems of other human beings, we simply cannot put a value on that. That companionship which continues beyond physical death, what value can we put on this far higher existence than the biological relationships? And that is why Quran says that the first biological relationship was beyond your control, you were born into it. Now, using the Quranic guidance, grow out of that biological relationship and become mu'mineen with united heart, and then see how things change in the outer world by coming together. In order to attain this higher eminence and exaltation, mu'mineen need to understand the riba-free economic system as presented by the Quran, and Quran puts a lot of emphasis on rizq at a fundamental level. Rizq has both aspects, and rizq means that the means of sustenance must be provided at the right time and in right quantity wherever these are required, and it includes both material as well as cognitive aspects. Now, next slide is Deen can only be shaped through the hands of those who possess developed selves. The Quranic view is that the personal worth of man does not depend on his talent to do a thing, but on what he actually does. So amal is extremely important. All men are equal in the sight of Allah, whatever may be the differences among them, which means in the sight of mu'mineen as well, all men are equal, and we have to acquire this ability to see human beings as equals at the level of their self. Moreover, the argument of the capitalist had weight so long as it was believed that intellectual work was more valuable than manual work. We now believe in the spectrum of values. Any type of work is as valuable as any other because it is carried out by a human being created by Allah, provided that man puts his heart into it. Manual work can have as much value as intellectual work. Besides this, the differences among men bestowed on each is unique individuality. However different men may be in respect of intelligence, they can be equal in respect of personal worth if each works conscientiously to the utmost limits of his capacity. And how do we know what are our limits? And Quran helps us to understand those limits. So it is in the interest of society that some men should possess greater ability in a particular sphere than others. So for this as well, we have to provide education and training. According to the Quran, the difference in ability amongst various individuals is for the purpose of division of labor and should not constitute a ground for creating inequality in society and meting out different treatment to different sets of men. The knowledge that men are unequal should not be allowed to induce us to relax our efforts to raise the general standard of living in the society. Of course, for division of labor, human beings have different proclivities as well. Some might like manual work as compared to the intellectual work, but that does not diminish their value. And we can see in today's world, those who are doing manual work, for example, are paid less as compared to those who do all kind of clever things. The Rububiyyah order is committed to provide the means of the development of each and every individual. It treats as sacred the right of every man to have full scope for his development. And I have quoted this paragraph, these two paragraphs from Islam as challenge to religion. It's worth going through this book again. Next slide is few verses of Surah Al-Hadid, another aspect of extending loan to Allah. Allah asking the Qarz or loan, Man zallazi yukridullaha qardan hasanan fayud afiyahu lahu walahu ajrun kareem. Who is he that will loan to Allah a beautiful to create balance, give loan to Allah to turn it into something more beautiful. For Allah will increase it manifold to his credit and he will have a liberal reward with honor. So over here, Quran is encouraging us to loan it to that effort which is towards the establishment of this system of Deen. And we know Qarz also means which turns the raw side of something into a mature side, into full-fledged beauty or fruit. Another aspect to which the Quran draws our attention is that by extending help to the efforts of Deen, we convert these from a raw form to a finished product. Innal musaddiqina wal musaddiqade wa akradullaha qardan hasanan yudafu lahum walahum ajrun kareem. Remember, those people, whether men or women, prove the truth of their iman through their deeds, i.e. in a beautiful manner, loan their wealth for the divine system. Their contribution is returned to them multiplied, and with that a great life of respect and dignity is bestowed on them. As I said earlier, that these things produce effect on our inner self. When on this path we make an effort and try to understand with this aim in life that I'm not happy with the system of Taghut around me, I want to have Iman in Allah and wish to do solid deeds so that our hearts become united and we work towards the system of Deen. Never mind whether that system materializes during our life or not, that is not an issue. But the issue is that rest of our life we are committed to this path. The parable of this is that a field in which a seed is planted in a raw form. And Quran says, Alamu anna Allaha yuhyil arda ba'da mawtiha qad bayyana lakumul ayati la'allakum taqilun. Know you that Allah gives life to the earth after its death. And Quran has used this metaphor in number of verses by drawing our attention that how the law of Allah brings life out of death. And if we see around in the world, there is no system of Deen anywhere. That means literally there is death under inverted commas in the world as per the Quran. And life can come out of it if we, for example, start acquiring new life within us. And that will be the topic of our presentation next Sunday. Already have we shown the signs plainly to you that you may know it using your intellect. So if we use our rational side and reasoning of our mind, we can figure it out very easily. Hence, if we wish to generate life within our dead self, then the Quranic guidance helps to infuse new life into this self. And this is important. If we are living life at animalistic level, then we are literally dead in the language of the Quran, because animals do not have the life of the hereafter. So in order to bring out life from our animalistic life, Quran gives us the procedure, gives us the formula, recipe, prescription to get that new life by our own choice. And that is the purpose of human creation, that I have to create new life within me using the Quranic guidance and the possessions given to me on this path in which Allah is always present, Huwa ma'akum aina ma kuntum, to help us to move forward with this new life. The issue is that we need to look at the Quran as the book which contains the procedure and guidance for acquiring this new life. The next slide is the issue of riba is linked to other injustices of man-made systems. When we reject man-made systems by following the precept, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. We have gone through this verse previously as well. Reject the system of Taghut after understanding it, after getting fed up with it, and accept Iman in Allah. The Quran tells us that this will lead to grasping a firm hold on the support of Allah, which will never let you down. Now, obviously, unless we follow this path, we can't test this part of the verse, that will He, if He lets us down, despite we following this recipe, then that means this formula is not correct. So that is where we make a mistake. We want to see it through the system of Pharaoh, that somehow all things will be placed in front of us and then we will follow it. And in fact, that is what Kafirin and Mushrikeen used to claim from the Messenger of Allah. Quran says, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَاتِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا. Surely such people have grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks. So it is worth giving it a try. We are all going to die at some point in time, like anyone else. But if we have brought out the new life within us, or at least have understood within our animalistic self, then we need to give it a try and see. And the change which comes within us becomes an evidence before our eyes that this support of Allah will never ever break. However, this law of Allah needs to be figured out from other parts of the Quran in order to get evidence for the modus operandi of obtaining this support. And Quran doesn't leave it there. It then explains, it gradually tells us how the signs will appear in your own self and in the outer world, which will say that the formula is 100% correct. Since Allah is not visible, hence the pioneers on this path need to work hard to come to grips with this aspect. And this is a very challenging work for all of us on this platform. Once they have understood, then they need to organize education, training, and self-development of others with a view to preparing a Jamaat of these Mu'mineen for the task of progressing towards the system of Deen. And this is a very challenging task which we are trying to accomplish on this platform, that each one of us have all those latent potentials. Now, it is our duty that if we are committed to this aim, that we want to get Allah's help on this path, then we have to understand all the finer aspects of this system of Deen, conceptually at least in the first stage. The issue of riba is linked to the human proclivity for the accumulation of wealth. And this is very important for us to understand. And we have reiterated it, but it's worth going through it again and again to remind ourselves, because human beings tend to forget that accumulation of wealth is inbuilt within us. We have to understand that greed, that proclivity towards wealth, and then try to come to terms with that what is its significance and how we can redirect it towards establishing the system of Deen. a sense of economic insecurity, which is part of man-made systems, acquisition of power associated with wealth, and we see plenty of it around us, that all those in power are the ones who have accumulated wealth. A desire to have authority and control over other human beings. Now this is kept there as well, but Mu'mineen have to become Aziz and Hakim. An absence of a sense of accountability, because human beings think that they are going to die with death, and there is no accountability. The life is only meant to accomplish their own desires. Or short-sightedness, looking for quick results, assuming life ends with death. So all these aspects and a lot more we have gone through previously as well, but we should keep in mind in order to make others understand. Even many of those who come to the Quran fail to go all the way to becoming part of the Jamaat with a view to fully comprehending the procedure for the acquisition of power. Hence, it is important that who fully understand it do not give up. Because if we have those thoughts of giving up, that there is nothing happening, then essentially we have failed to acquire that Iman to which the Quran has pointed our attention to, for example, in this verse 256. Next is, how does the man-made system operate across the world? The Quran has outlined all the fundamental wrongs of man-made systems in various accounts of the messengers from the past, which we can relate to the world of today. For example, in the case of Pharaoh and the messenger of Musa, Quran says, Natlu alayka min nabain Musa wa Firauna bil haqqi liqawmi yuminun. We rehearse to you accounts of the messenger Musa and Pharaoh in haqq, for people who have accepted Iman. Then it outlines the charge sheet against Pharaoh as a representative of the man-made system. And Quran says, Inna Firauna ala fil ardi wa ja'ala ahlaha shiyan yastad'ifu ta'ifatum minhum yuzabbihu abnahum wa yastahyi nisahum innahu kana minal mufsideen. Truly Pharaoh elated himself in the land and broke up its people into factions, depressing a small group among them. Their competent ones he demeaned and promoted the weak, for he was among the mufsideen. And mufsideens are those who create conflicts, bloodshed, and imbalances in the society deliberately. And all of this is happening under the man-made systems. What do these people do? Faqala ana rabbukum alala. Those people in power say, we are the ones who hold total monopoly on the means of sustenance for other human beings, saying, I am your Rabb, most high. These people gain control over the means of sustenance, and this helps them to enslave fellow human beings. Riba is part of this system of exploitation. The common man is so absorbed in his day-to-day struggle that he cannot see all the invisible or even visible chains around his neck and within his head. So that puts a very extra onus on the students of the Quran, that despite facing difficulties and challenges of earning a living within man-made system, if they have come to the Quran, then they should explore it to its maximum and make full effort in order to get Allah's help towards the system of Deen. And they should make an effort in such a way, with this determination, even if there is no possibility of this system anywhere, that I will or we will make that effort, that it can materialize within our lifetime. What do people with power, that is unguided minds, do in the land? Innal muluka iza dakhalu qaryatan afsaduha wa ja'alu izzata ahliha azillatan wa kazalika yafalun. I took it from the story of the messenger Suleiman and in relation to Queen Sheba. And Quran says, those in power, when they enter a land, create fasad and make the noblest of its people the meanest, thus do they act. And it always happens like that. We have seen it, what has happened in, for example, initially in Vietnam, and then later on, in fact, if we go back to Second World War, what Germans did to others. And similarly, we have seen right in front of our own eyes what happened in Iraq, Libya, Syria, and then Ukraine, and what is happening in Gaza, and what is happening in Sudan. So wherever we look, this is what is happening at the hands of those who are in power. Now let us go to next slide. How can we take advantage of the Quran in relation to Deen? There is a lot of repetition in these slides. I agree with that, but I thought to, since this is the last presentation on riba, to remind ourselves as well. We have seen the ruthlessness of the leaders of man-made systems who disregard their own commitments and agreements, which lead to problems in various regions of the world. The issue which needs our attention is that all those who study the Quran as the system of Deen are not willing to commit 100% to its formula for the acquisition of power in the land. And this 100% is very important. Each one of us on this platform, if we are committed to getting power from Allah, then we have to make a commitment that whatever I can do as part of this team, I will do. Doesn't matter how many limitations we have because of the man-made system, at least we should, at a cognitive level, think about it 24/7. When the Quran states, وَنَجَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ, but we delivered those who had Iman and adhered to obedience of the laws of Allah. And this is a law as well. The Quran declares emphatically at the start, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And we see that كَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ, that if you become muttaqi, then this help will be available to you. And the whole purpose of the Quran is to help us become muttaqeen. And we know muttaqeen means who want to avoid the pitfalls of life, who have accepted Iman, who have become mu'mineen. And a very comprehensive definition of muttaqi is in verse 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah. This is the book in which there is no doubt, which serves as a guidance for those who wish to avoid the pitfalls of life. Even under the man-made systems, people who rise to the top to earn its benefits have to work day and night to achieve that status and then devise all kinds of machinations to remain in a position of power. And we can see that. And Quran is asking Mu'mineen to even be more committed to it, because these people are working because they think or assume that the life will end with death. But Mu'mineen know that the life will go beyond death as well. We need to take this path even more earnestly in order to provide evidence to Allah that we are serious about our commitment to His cause, because we have entered in a covenant with Him. The Quran points to this by stating, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ تُوعَدُونَ. As for those who say our Rabb is Allah and further stand firm, Malaika descend on them. And these Malaika over here are those psychological forces, those inner changes, those motivations, that restlessness within us, that I am fed up with the man-made system. I want to stand up against it, and I would like to stay together with those who are already on this path and unite my heart with them. And once that unity of heart is created, we will see that what value we will put on that. And we are going to cover that under aesthetic sense as a permanent value. Fear you not, nor grieve, but receive the glad tidings of the Jannat which you are promised. How do we know that our self has acquired new life? The first sign is that we are dissatisfied with the man-made systems despite being the beneficiaries of it. This leads to making efforts to study it objectively and be aware of both its good as well as evil side. The Quran calls this as the rejection of Taghut. Then we come to the Quran by chance or are invited by someone who is already on the path. It appeals to us and we take further interest. After a few years, we are in a position to make a decision to accept Iman as noted in it. It is not about saying Shahada and becoming a Muslim, not at all. We don't acquire Iman like that. This brings about a change in our outlook and we explore it further. Here a stage comes where we see the futility of our previous beliefs and their impact on our psyche. Accepting Iman creates a desire to be with those who are on this path. This is a very potent sign. Accepting Iman creates a desire to be with those who are on this path and they don't get bored by being together. If after coming to the Quran, this desire and need is not created within us, then essentially our Iman is not that of the Quran. And there's a plenty of verses on this aspect within the Quran. It is that Iman which our desire makes attractive to us, and the Quran calls it our deeds seem pleasing to us. This contributes nothing towards self development, and we are of no use for the establishment of the system of Deen. And that is the bottom line. If we haven't acquired that Iman, which we have verified by coming together, then essentially that Iman is multiplied with a big zero according to the Quran. By coming together using the platform of Tolu Islam, we then willingly and formally commit to this path for the rest of our life. Why I have noted down Tolu Islam over here? I have looked at countless lectures and discussions with others, and I have seen that Tolu Islam is the only organization in the world which stands up for the system of Deen, which presents the Quran as a system, which is totally selfless, and it has all the requisite literature and audios and videos and people as well who are striving towards this system of Deen. We can fully appreciate the inner change in our psyche, which is totally different from that psyche which we had before accepting Iman. Remaining firmly on this path then becomes a glaring sign in our commitment to this cause. Now over here there's a slide, Tolu Islam and the Quran. The aim of the Tolu Islam movement is to help remove all non-Quranic ideologies, beliefs, and practices prevalent in the present-day sectarian versions of Islam and replace them with Quranic concepts and values based on reason and rational. We should be very clear, sectarian Islam can never ever establish the system of Deen, because all these people have dissonances within them, and without removing those dissonances and coming together, they can never ever bring that Islam into any land. They cannot simply be of any use to the system of Deen, because Quran says, وَاتَاسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. Coming together, united, is the first prerequisite for the system of Deen. And if people have differences within them, they simply cannot be united. Their hearts simply cannot be united. Tolu Islam has literature covering aspects of the system of Deen from a conceptual level to the implementation level, which can help individuals willing to study the Islamic system as an alternative to all man-made systems. And by studying this, we can then understand that what is the difference between man-made system and the system of Deen. While its members and those who are influenced by its vision and mission are doing their best to share the Quranic guidance with others across the world, effort is also being made to provide education and training to those members who are willing to come forward to enhance their understanding to a higher level of self-development. And the purpose and aim of this platform is precisely this, that those who have come to this, now they should go to the next stage of getting their own self ready to attract the attention of Allah for the system of Deen. With the development and spread of the means of communication in the world, it has become possible to provide help to explore the finer aspects of the system of Deen. Since the system of Deen does not exist anywhere in the world in any land, hence pioneers need to acquire higher self-development within the shortest possible time. Next slide is, we sometimes hear from some quarters that Tolu Islam is not doing enough. Such thoughts arise in those minds who read some books of Tolu Islam and then wish to see the system of Deen appearing in some piece of land in the world. It doesn't work like that. They wish to see others in Tolu Islam somehow through a miracle should manage to make it happen. And I come across this kind of a thinking where they look at us and say that what has Tolu Islam done so far? And when I have invited them to join it, they turn their face away and go away. This is due to absence of a developed self. And this is the key to understanding this kind of a behavior. This is due to absence of a developed self in which they fail to understand their own role after studying the Quran. Tolu Islam only provides a platform for those who accept Iman, bring about a change within their own selves, and then wish to join others who are striving on this path with a view to working towards the system of Deen. Tolu Islam also provides an opportunity for further self-development by becoming part of this companionship towards helping Allah to carry out his responsibilities as laid down in the Quran. And the beauty of this is that once hearts are united, and I've said it before as well, and we have discussed it in our question answer session number of times, what value we will put on that unity of heart. Where can we buy that in the world? If we fail to come to grips with this aspect despite reading its books and literature, then we will essentially fail to develop that aspect of ourself and its potentials which are related to acquisition of education, training, and coming together with a view to meet the precondition of uniting our hearts as mu'mineen. Claiming to be serious about the system of Deen in the world and not being serious in becoming companions under the umbrella of Tolu Islam will be Ya ayyuhallazina amanu lima taquluna ma la tafalun. O Jamaat Mu'mineen, why say you that which you do not? Because Iman means that we have to do all those solid deeds, and the first one is to come together. And if we do not do that, then essentially we are providing evidence against on our own self that what we are saying we are failing to practice. Next slide is the system of Deen emerges out of the man-made systems. The transition from the system based on the relative values towards the system based on the permanent values is gradual and in steps. Nothing in the nature happens overnight. When Allah says that everything starts happening when He says be, means that everything starts evolving gradually and the means are made available, resources are made available, and then the things start taking shape in the domain of khalq. As the new system starts to take shape, all those living within its domain are guided to bring the change within their psyche and outlook to logically grasp the new system. It is important to understand that the system based on acquiring new life cannot be effectively implemented in a mechanical manner. All those who want to establish this system first have to have the pleasure of enjoying this new life within themselves after giving up the life of the man-made system. And unless they have acquired this new life, they are of no use to the system of Deen. It is the change of hearts and minds which needs to take place, and those who acquire power for this system have already acquired this new life within their own self. Hence, they will exactly know what kinds of selves are required for the new system to become effective. This is a fundamental requirement for the success of this system, and all the benefits are predicated on this change within the selves of the majority of its members. So this is the initial seeding which takes place of those mu'mineen who have created new life within them. And this is where Tolu Islam can help and provide information. Of course, the effort has to come from each one of us. The frailties and limitations existing within unbridled and unguided minds will gradually be recognized and overcome through motivation, education, and training based on the Quranic value system. For this, an elaborate decentralized system will be put in place with a team across the land which has acquired developed selves. Next is the system of Deen emerges out of the man-made system. Second slide. Many of us find it conceptually very difficult, in fact challenging, that how can a system function effectively, in fact far better, which is based on no riba, holding back nothing which is beyond your needs, having zero affection for the accumulation of wealth, etc. How can a system diametrically opposite in concept to all the man-made systems firstly come into existence and then flourish successfully through its life-giving outcomes? Its life-giving outcomes because all those who are managing this system have managed to acquire new life within themselves. All these intellectual difficulties arise at the initial stages of coming to terms with the Quranic concepts, and we need to overcome these by remaining focused on one aspect, i.e., what is the alternative? So that is the question we should ask, that if we don't want to follow this path of life, which the Quran is putting forward, and we have seen it that whatever we are discussing here is supported by the Quranic verses. Then what is the alternative? Keep living under the man-made system and its exploitation and have chains around our neck and then leave this life? Is that the purpose of life? is that what human beings should be doing? Just continue to live under the man-made systems with fear and huzn, keep complaining about it, keep reading the Quran for intellectual and emotive satisfaction or swab, and keep praising the natural wonders, and keep praising Allah by saying Alhamdulillah and Inshallah and Mashallah around us, and keep admiring the Quran for its language and its contents related to science and metaphors, and then die under the man-made systems without making any effort to find out the higher purpose of human creation. If we are willing to do that, then of course Tulu Islam is not for us. These difficulties remain until the time we come to grips with the concept of Allah and the hereafter noted in the Quran. Once this obstacle is overcome, Iman starts to facilitate further steps on this path called Sirat-e-Mustaqim. So if we want to pray Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, then this is what the Quran is asking us to follow, because Allah Himself is on Sirat-e-Mustaqim. All the verses which relate to the establishment of Deen and its support from the direction of Allah fall under the categories of Muhkamat. And our effort should be to give these a firm commitment and follow steadfastly to prove that it is possible to become established in one finite human lifespan in this world. And finally, I've drawn a schematic over here. What is my worth as a human being? This took me a while to look at my own self, that what is my own importance? What importance I have under the man-made system? And what importance Quran is asking me to have under the guidance of Allah. And here is some human being like myself sitting and thinking, what should I do with my life? What is the purpose of my life? And then what can I do to increase my worth? So we get a certain biological worth by being born in some piece of land in the world. If I'm born in a poor family, then I have a pretty low worth. But if I'm born, for example, in Trump's family or in Elon Musk's family, then obviously have far higher worth in terms of material values. And then worth defined by the man-made systems. So what worth human beings and their system puts on a child? The children born today, for example, in various parts of the world, what worth they have. A child born in Gaza, what worth he or she will have. And these are important issues as students of the Quran to think about it. So this is something which we have to think, and this is free. We shouldn't be scared of thinking like that. Man-made systems invite man to define their worth as animals who disappear with physical death. Their worth is measured in terms of material successes. For example, wealth, health, power, status, possessions, social relations. The needs of the man's human self do not appear anywhere in this evaluation. And we will see that if we ask anyone that how is your life, and they will always count on the material side of it. They will never bring in the purpose of life, higher purpose of life, and the hereafter, and all those permanent values which we have gone through so far. Change in outlook and worth defined by the Quran. What worth the Quran is putting on this? The Quran describes the purpose of the creation of Adam and then briefs about his two states of existence, i.e., his worth without guidance and his increased worth after following the guidance. Life is lived at animalistic level. When it is lived at animalistic level, this is what happens. Only the Quran can tell true worth of each human being. To know worth, man needs to bring out his latent potentials using the guidance. So if in order to find our worth, we have to bring out our latent potentials, and those latent potentials brought out in the light of the Quran will tell us what is the worth of each one of us. If these potentials remain untapped, then human life becomes unlived. The Quran provides the account of Adam prior to following its guidance and the subsequent transformation after receiving guidance. For example, if man dies without Quranic guidance, then it is multiplied with a 0 and is equal to 0 using the Quranic terminology. And if man enhances his own value through his own efforts by acquiring Iman and doing solid deeds, then man is multiplied by Iman, and since Iman is infinity Hence, he gets a new life and eligible for eternal life. And Quran says, وَلَقَدْ زَرَعْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. If we have Iman in the Quran, then we should go through this verse again and again and explain it to others and explain to our children and explain to everyone around us. And explain it in the light of evidence as well. In the man-made system, there is plenty of evidence everywhere. Many are the jinns and ins, and jinns over here means those who live a nomadic life or in rural habitations. We have made for hell, and made for hell doesn't mean that Allah has made them for hell. They create hell for themselves, the kind of a hell which we see clearly in the world in which we live. They have hearts, they understand not, eyes wherewith they see not, and ears wherewith they hear not. They are like cattle, nay, more astray, for they are heedless. They are worse than cattle because animals work on their instincts, which are provided by nature, and human beings have choice and intent, and if they don't use that choice and intent by using the guidance of the Quran, then essentially they are wasting their life. Our life, and it is our choice. It is our choice whether we want to follow this path. And of course, if this path has not presented to us, then essentially we are slave of this path. And Quran helps us to identify this other path. And those who have understood it like us, then we need to explain it to others if we have come to grips with it. And it is important because if we have created that new life within us, then we are in a better position to explain to them based on evidence. We can tell them that these are the signs and this is how I have benefited from this new life within me. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.